Maharaj ki jai. Jai Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to seek your blessings and your good wishes so that we can dive into the nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. This is all the blessings of Srila Prabhupada. And today, I believe in 1965, Srila Prabhupada left for USA from Bharat by steamer ship, by actually cargo ship. And I was just reading a little bit about how he persuaded Srimati Moraji of the Scindia Steamship Company to give him a ticket to go to Bharat. She was actually a great fan of Prabhupada. She read his books, and when he said to her that he wanted to go to the US, she refused him. She said, no, you shouldn't go because you're going to die there. What will you do? Who will listen to you? And Prabhupada wrote many letters to her, as well as talking to her secretary to persuade her to give him a ticket to go to the US. But she refused every time. Eventually, he made a personal appointment to see her. And at that meeting, he convinced her that she should give him a ticket to go. So she made the arrangements, and she put him on a steamer ship, a cargo ship rather, to go to the US. And his mercy, his blessings, the sacrifice that he's made, which is actually second to none, because if he hadn't made that sacrifice at the ripe old age of 70, 69, but you could say 70 because he celebrated his 70th birthday on the journey. And in fact, he had 2 heart attacks around that same time. So he left Sri Vrindavan Dham. He left the hub of the spiritual world. He was living in Radha Damodar temple, which is regarded to be the absolute center of that lotus that we often look at in Golok Vrindavan. He left that place and he came to the most westernized, most godless civilization, and faced against huge materialism, the skyscrapers. Who would listen to you would be what this lady would argue with him. And he would say, well, it's the order of my spiritual master. The blessing is in his order. I simply have to go and fulfill the mission of my spiritual master. Anyway, next week on Wednesday is Sri Krishna Janmashtami. And on the day after Sri Krishna Janmashtami is Srila Prabhupada's appearance day. So we will spend some time, some good time, discussing this greatest of great souls. Because without him, we definitely would not be here. I know I certainly wouldn't be. So we owe him our life. It's for him that actually we do whatever we can do, because without him, we would be nowhere. So we owe him everything. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this Bhagavad Gita is, of course, his. And this is a fellow called Thomas Merton, theologian. And he's written this. The Gita can be seen as the main literary support for the great religious civilization of India, the oldest surviving culture in the world. The present translation and commentary is another manifestation of the permanent living importance of the Gita. Swami Bhaktivedanta brings to the West a salutary reminder that our highly activistic and one-sided culture is faced with a crisis that may end in self-destruction. How appropriate these words are, because it lacks the inner depth of an authentic metaphysical consciousness. Without such depth, our moral and political protestations are just so much verbiage. Wonderful. So, we want to continue with chapter 14. I promised that we would take any questions or any comments before we looked at any further points. I think we were at point 7, just about to start point 7. But before we do, and we were talking about the modes of material nature and how these modes, we can tell the symptoms of a person by categorizing these different qualities according to the modes. And that will be, sorry, I just had a message. Okay, good. So I just lost my train of thought. So these 3 modes influence every activity. And we've seen how over the last couple of days how that is the case. And we want to continue. But first, are there any questions that arose from yesterday's? I have a couple of points, but I'd like to take questions first, or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Priti.
So my one was, we were talking about the sacrifice or charity. Where does donating blood or organ come in? And I'm not sure if it was leading more onto what about the roles of doctors? What are they doing? Like, if people aren't living a simplistic life, like want to be in the mode of ignorance, like say, it can get quite heated, or I've known at times. So, but basically, where does that come in? Should they do that? Should we donate? Should the doctors? There are certain things which that they're grateful. Like say somebody's involved in an accident, not some things they're grateful. Sorry. Like say if people are involved in an accident and their bones are broken up and everything, and some things like Ayurveda can't fix broken bones and everything. So, it's really good that type of, to have that type of medical facility. But it was just more going about the whole karma issue. Are we going to have another, like a separate workshop or a separate class on this altogether? That was, I think, the main thing.
We can,
like you said, what does scripture say on about donating blood or organ? Yeah.
We can probably try to discuss it today,
Okay.
if you like. I think in terms of doctors, it's part of their duty to help people cure people if they become injured or have diseased. So I'm not sure if, for example, if they save a life and later on that person who they've saved does a terrible act of killing somebody, say, one example, murder. Would that person's act, would some of that share of that killing that another person, the human, go to the doctor? That's what you're basically saying, right?
Yeah, actually, that's one thing as well. The other thing was, like, if people choose to live in the mode of ignorance regarding their food, let's say, and there are lots of research will go where diet could lead to certain heart attacks or clogging of arteries and stuff. It's their preference, So again, if they were to have lived in the mode of goodness, are we not are we, but just generally as people want more sense gratification or live extremely materially, or purely for sense gratification, then to have people on standby to help them out like that, isn't that, that's just not, that there's that word, sudhri na jaye, like, oh, don't worry, we have somebody on standby kind of thing, just in case if that kind of thing happens. So why not, like, I'm sorry, but maybe like this is it, just change your diet over here. Now I understand that people have some kind of mental health, or there's something there which people might comfort eat and everything, but that's like another area of that's another area, clinic side, clinical stuff. But regarding that physical thing, it's like, no, let's focus, put money into areas where there are more counselors readily available for people, to, like, life coaches or counselors, rather than relying on doctors to do stuff which generally seems to be what people just go for like a temporary kind of results or something.
Mm-hmm. Say a drunkard on a Friday night, rather than necessarily, he ends up in hospital, but rather than perhaps giving treatment, giving counseling that you shouldn't be drinking.
Well, no, like, it's like, okay, it's happened, and you get, let's say, maybe that one chance, okay, like, okay, you've been given that, like, we've taken care of you now, but I know this is quite harsh, but you go to counseling, because then after to sort out what's happening, because otherwise this kind of facility might not be available. What I'm saying? I mean, I think it goes all the way up to government level on what they're advertising for people. But there was just, it was all kind of related somewhere to this. Where does that kind of work come into as a worker? Does it come under passion, what you're doing? Doctors, they're really good, awesome. But what does that category come under at times? There are the Ayurvedic and naturopathy doctors, and I would say a lot of them, their kind of job role goes under goodness.
For sure.
So that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, when one's doing their duty, a doctor, for example, I mean, Nani Ben is a doctor, the most amazing personalities, because their interest is primarily helping people. And if one is helping people, what does Krishna say? One who helps others, he'll never be lost,
Yeah.
So I don't think there would be any karma, negative karma, in terms of others' behavior if they help somebody recover and then the others behave badly. I'm not so sure whether they would face any reaction. Karma is extraordinarily difficult to understand. Krishna says it in chapter 4, text 17, that karma is very, very intricate to understand. And he almost tells Arjuna, don't even think about karma and the reactions, how have I got here, and why am I facing my grandfather in this battle, because it's just too complex. And an example is, if you go to the temple and you walk away with somebody else's shoes, right, which often happens. Wearing somebody else's shoes, you acquire some of their karma. That is in the scriptures. That is described. Another example is, if you eat at somebody's house, their consciousness goes into that food. Not just their consciousness. You acquire some of their karma as well. So karma is extraordinarily difficult to pinpoint and understand. So, like we were discussing, what it is, if somebody donates an organ and later on the person who's been saved does some bad karma, can that bad karma done by that person who's been saved relate back to the person who donated, at least some of it, donated that organ? Again, it's very difficult to see how that can happen because it's so remote. But karma, it is intricate, it is well defined as well, but it's very, very complex. Another example is there are, like Madhusudan Prabhu was saying yesterday, there's many souls in this body, many souls. We are the primary, the main soul. That's us, because we are conscious throughout the body. But there are other living entities, like bacteria, germs, secondary living entities who also live in this body. And example is, if we take out an organ from our body, okay, then we may be damaging some of those secondary souls. So if we're healthy and we take out an organ and give it to somebody else, we may be incurring some karma for disturbing, killing the secondary souls living in this body. So karma is extraordinarily hard to understand and accept. And it's said that if you want to donate blood, if you want to donate organ, then actually the donation should be made towards a devotee who will be preaching the holy names of the Lord. Then what you've done is you've given your vital organs, etc., for the propagation, for the service of the Lord. However, that in practical terms is pretty much impossible, except in situations where there's a matching donor. I'll give you one example. In South Africa, one of our godbrother's wife, Archita, she donated her kidney to her brother, who's a doctor and a devotee as well. In that situation, the donor is giving to a devotee, fine. But generally speaking, when you donate blood, you don't know where it's going to go. Donate kidneys, it might not even go anywhere. It might just get completely wasted. So these are all sort of factors which need to be taken into account. And if we can pinpoint exactly what reaction will take place if we donate some blood or something like that, we would be looking at probably an impossible task. In these sort of circumstances, I would recommend, from my personal point of view, is if we give something and we artificially somehow or other prolong somebody's life. I think the way I'm seeing this is, if we are prolonging somebody's life who perhaps shouldn't be in that body, should be in another body, if we're prolonging somebody's life and that person does great deeds, I can see the way karma could work is some of those deeds accrue to you, and vice versa. We prolong somebody's life and he does some really bad things. Perhaps some of those karmas may well accrue back to the person who has given him that extra bit of life. So I'm not sure if that's going to answer any questions, but I certainly know it's a very, very hard, difficult field to discuss, to talk about, and get any exact analysis.
Yeah, like we were talking about, there is some area where I get what you're saying, karma is intricate and everything. Maybe there was some part of my question it didn't answer, and I haven't worded it properly as well. There is the bit where you said about prolonging people's life. I mean, if at any point it gives them that opportunity to turn to God, because it is only in human life they can turn to God. So, or like make some kind of conscious work towards it, then I guess that's a good thing. And I think I mentioned yesterday, you can only pray to Krishna that whatever you're doing, there's good stuff comes from it at the end of the day. Yeah, that they don't take life for granted and stuff like that. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Unfortunately, it's out of our... Yes, Madhusudan.
Well, yeah, quite an intricate topic, and discussion can get quite complex. But in general, when we look at it, I'm trying to understand this as part of the Bhagavad Gita, and especially reading the purpose of Prabhupada, quite clearly emphasizes that majority of the population and authorities involved in looking after the citizens in this particular Kali Yuga, they're mostly in the mode of ignorance and passion. And there are individuals who are trying to help other people in so many different ways. A lot of people do philanthropic work, medical work, doctors, they try and help. And that is required, but that's always targeting the body and the mind. And the soul is always kind of real help. Like Prabhupada was, in purpose, he says, if you don't know how to help a person, if somebody's drowning and you don't know how to help the person, and all you're doing is you don't know how to throw even a lifeguard or a life jacket or anything, and you haven't got one, then how are you going to help the drowning person? So the real help that is required is that of the soul, and that's where Krishna consciousness comes in, and Bhagavad Gita and teachings of where you're addressing the suffering of the soul, which is tangled up in the body, the mind, false ego, and all that sort of thing. So, but then when it comes to the issues of helping a person addressing the body, you got to do the best you can, but that's actually just like fixing your car, sending it for MOT or service, or you got to exchange the parts, engine transplant or whatever, you call it. But it is to a certain extent just working on the very body and the mental platform only. And that's always in the mode of passion and ignorance, and there's some element of goodness in it. And that just keeps the souls and the living entities just going through the cycle. And majority of the countries and governments are just at that consciousness level. They're not in a Krishna conscious platform to try to really elevate the whole population. In the past, in Satyayuga and all that, the Raj Rishis and the kings and all that were guided properly by Vedic literatures, and so they would know, as far as and guiding the general mass of people, because they're educated, they're taking the knowledge from the Vedic scriptures, and the doctors and the physicians, they would know how to help the people with the really advanced medical, Dhanvantari is one of the avatars of Krishna, who gave the medical science and everything to the world, and that knowledge is there, but it's not accessible easily, and majority of the doctors learning about medical science are just learning how to fix the body. It's just like car mechanics, fixing the body and all that. I mean, they do a good job, and sometimes transfusion of blood or organ transplant is just like fixing your car and everything. On that level, if we start to see on a spiritual level, from Krishna conscious point of view, then you start to really understand that this is really not going to affect this Atma that much. Nothing happens. Body can. I had a bit. A couple of years ago, I had a heart transplant, and I know. Sorry.
Bypass.
I had a quadruple bypass, not heart transplant. Whoa, boy. Yeah, but heart transplant they do as well. Amazing stuff they do. So I've had my chest totally wide open. I've had a doctor was fantastic. When I did recover from it, I went to the doctor and I said, my wife was with me. we went for the final interview when he was discharging me. He said, "You've recovered quite well." There was a time when I didn't really recover, almost. And there was a night that I thought, whether I make it tonight or not, it's up to Krishna. And that's the point when I'd come and I really realized what Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigra Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam, that the cause of all causes is Krishna. And if he's the cause of causes, then it's up to him whether he keeps my heart ticking away or not. You know, it comes to a point when that night I recovered. Next day I felt a lot better. Doctors didn't have to do what they did, what they wanted to do on me, or they would have needed to do if I didn't, whatever. Anyway, that was the situation. But I went to the doctor at the end and I said, you know, you were the one who's actually ever been closest to my heart. And I would like to give you a gift. He was an Indian doctor, Dandeka, he's South Indian, he's a really nice doctor. And I gave him the autobiography of Prabhupada. And I said, I would like to give you this book. He said, oh, yes, I know about Prabhupada. He said, I will really relish this book and I'll read it. Because my son also, his son is partly kind of Krishna conscious, you know, he's coming to that knowledge, he understands. So a lot of doctors know that ultimately, you know, they're just fixing and working on the level of body, whether it involves transplant, organ transplant, or fixing the heart, or bypassing this artery, that artery. You know, it's just a working in the body. But real knowledge, when the real knowledge starts to come in, and where this Krishna consciousness, that's why this Bhagavad Gita, in purpose of Prabhupada, you know, that it's needed, so much needed, that even doctors need to study this. And then when they are there, and someone who's on that level of, you know, then they can pray for that soul at the right level. And that's where devotees come in, you know, Krishna consciousness. And we are trying to understand all these different aspects, try to understand how the law of karma actually works, so intricate, like, you know, but ultimately when you actually do hand yourself in the hands of Krishna, then, you know, it's like, you know, then we wonder, you know, how in the material world, so many living entities are just going through all these, and then is there any point? Is there, you know, all this karma is just going to material laws of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance is just controlling everything anyway. And whether one acts through knowledge or not, it's just left to their karma, and the law of karma takes over. You can't argue with it, you know. If somebody has killed someone, as the Shastras say, if you kill a cow, then you've got a heavy, heavy karma. You know, as many hairs on the body of a cow, that's how many times you have to go through that same process of being slaughtered. It's a heavy karma. Sorry, I can't hear you. You muted. Am I?
If somebody say, this is the whole idea actually. You touched it, and thanks for sharing your personal, you know, realization when you went through your challenging situation and came out, and you came out of it very well. The thing is, if somebody's life is prolonged, and we are the reason for it, right? Say, and they continue in their lifestyle. Nowadays, mode of ignorance, passion is very prominent. And say they continue to eat beef, one example. And we know the karmic reaction of eating beef is heavy. So does any of that come back to the person who's helped that person continue their life? You know,
yeah, it is, because it says that the person who kills is bound in the karma. The person who actually cooks
No, but what about the person who's in somebody's life who's eating? That's not mentioned. That's not that's not one of the 7.
Yeah.
So that is quite remote.
Yeah.
For what I understand from, actually many devotees have commented on this, and I haven't found a scriptural injunction, haven't looked that hard for that. But there is some karma that accrues to the person who donates an organ, who saves somebody's life. That person continues to, or does some sinful activities, so the karma does come back. So the point is, do we stop donating blood? Do we stop donating organs? Because because we got no say in where that's going to go. We can't say that organ has to go to somebody who's wearing tilak, chanting 16 rounds, has a spiritual master, and does Gayatri Mantra every day. We can't say that because it could go to anybody, or it could just be thrown in the bin.
Yeah.
The idea is, I think what Pitti's point is it so remote that, and we wouldn't be doing our little best? Why are we suffering if we're doing a little bit of our best? Essentially, that's where the problem is. Why am I getting some bad karma if I'm doing some good? But the problem, I think, is you think you're doing some good, and you touched on it very nicely, Madhusudan, that we're looking at the body. We're looking, okay, we saved somebody's life, but actually that person, you saved the life into this body, but where's that person going in the future? The only real way where we can make a difference to a person is by giving spiritual knowledge or spiritual food, prashadam. That's the only way we can make a difference. If we donate something, we don't know which is going to go, which way it's going to go. If we put our energies, our intelligence, our mental power into thinking, how can I really help this person? And as you beautifully did, you gave a biography of Srila Prabhupada to the doctor. What better gift can you possibly give someone? Like with Aruna Ben, oh good, you're there. I had a point, Aruna, are you there? Yeah. If the only one thing you do in your life,
Yes.
nothing else, right? No good karma, no bad karma. One thing you do is you give your hair and you raise some funds for Macmillan Charity. Yes. Fantastic act, right? Brilliant act. You get, if that's the only thing you do, you get a lot of pious credit for that. Good karma. But the problem with good karma, and we don't say don't do good karma, by the way, don't get me wrong. Good karma is good. But the problem with that is that you're still going to be in this world to enjoy that good karma. Whether it's in heaven or on earth, you will have a fantastic life. But it's still in this world. The idea is, what can you do so that you don't get good karma, but you still do good? Yeah. But it's so good that it goes beyond this world, goes to the spiritual world. And that's what we were saying yesterday. You know, if the nurses, you can locate the ones who really, really helped you and actually gift them some spiritual knowledge, prashad. Yeah, I mentioned that. If somebody eats just prashad once in their life, it guarantees them that they will not take birth in the animal kingdom. Guaranteed.
Thank you.
That's quite a nice gift.
Brighton, so I'm going to wait till the the lockdown is over, and maybe I should make a trip down there and offer.
Yeah. And if you need some Bhagavad Gitas, let us know.
I probably will do. Yeah. Definitely.
Anything you need, let Madhusudan Prabhu know. Let me know. We've got Gitas, and we can send them to you. All the other books.
Thank you. But I know Kanchan and they were all praying for me. That was, I think Krishna looked after me. I don't say that. Sometimes I think that it wasn't the operation. I think it was Krishna's hand is all on me. That's why I'm here today. Does that make sense?
For
He
sure.
looked after me
For
and
sure.
my parents.
Yes. And it's
So I give credit to Krishna. I don't say that, oh, I survived by myself or just, but I saw the nurses coming and helping me. So I thought that would be something to give back to Macmillan.
see, that gratitude you should never lose, because it will always keep you in this humble area, you know. I am so thankful. Like when I chant in the morning, first thing I do is thank you for allowing me to get up.
Yes, thank you. I always say that. Thank you for my health, and
Yeah.
I think what you've given me is extra bonus on top of that. It's an icing. That's what I
On the cake.
think. Thank you.
And this is our opportunity, Arunaben. This is our opportunity to make much spiritual progress. In this very life, we want to completely change our destiny.
Yes.
And we can. It's in our hands.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Priti, is there any other comment? Anything you'd like to add? Yeah.
Yeah, there is comment and there's a question as well. Okay, so the comment is okay, so again it goes back to what kind of work that you do, okay, and going back to this medicine side of things, medical technology, using a lot of natural resources to make that modern technology, and again it's many times it's eventually used. Again, I'm going to go back to example of how people choose to live their lifestyle, right? And I get this, it's evolution of time. You just adapt to change, and you know, you just go with the flow regarding spreading knowledge and brush out. But coming back, like there's that saying, on earth there's enough for people's needs, not greed. And so the more of this medical technology you use and your lifestyle that you use, you could end up somehow harming your body. And you know, if there's research out there to say that this stuff harms it and people still do it, and then there are people to help you fix that situation you've got yourself into to prolong your life, you'd think that at the end of the day, the earth, nature is also getting the hard end of it. Like there was that story somewhere in Srimad Bhagavad which says, because people are using up nature too much or just being greedy, then these other situations are happening, like natural disasters or something. Because yeah, so yeah, I think that was more of a comment. I don't know. So that's what I was just trying to say. Would certain work jobs that people decide to do, that job alone, would it come under a certain mode?
Yes, for sure. Because there is work which can be very destructive, like the nuclear scientists making the nuclear bombs. Very, very destructive work. So there are jobs which are in the mode of ignorance, for sure. Doctors would fall under the mode of goodness. They are always helping us.
And
also, if you look at
yeah,
natural disasters, like we're going through one now, aren't we? It's almost like Mother Nature saying, you know, I've had enough. I want to reclaim some of my resources again.
yeah. And you mentioned something about secondary souls. What's that?
That's
at some point?
entities who are living in our body.
Sorry, say that again.
The souls who are living in our body. You know, the bacteria, the germs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Secondary souls. So there is some duty on the primary soul, us, to not misuse our body to such an extent where we cause difficulties for those secondary souls. So removing an organ, for example, fall into that category. It's a minefield of a subject, and something that we haven't got enough expertise to talk.
Okay.
So I have, general 2 points that I'd like to make. If it's okay, I'd maybe. I'd like to sorry.
If you could do it quickly, we just got a couple of more questions. But go on.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, just wanted to read this bit out from Prabhupada's purport. That there is, because Prabhupada obviously emphasizes that the cows and the Brahmins should be protected, and in the modern human society, spiritual knowledge is neglected and cow killing is encouraged. It is to be understood that human society is advancing in the wrong direction and is clearing the path to its own condemnation. Civilization that guides the citizens to become animals in the next life is certainly not a human civilization. The present human civilization is, of course, grossly misled by the modes of passion and ignorance, and it's a dangerous age. All nations should take care to provide the easiest process, Krishna consciousness, to save humanity from the greatest danger. So like I say, the advancements that we may be making, the human society, is generally in the mode of ignorance and passion, and basically doesn't really help the general ordinary citizens in the present age to really make advancement to a spiritual knowledge. And therefore, it's just fixing the body, like I said. It's just fixing the body and the mind, obviously the mind. And there's so many traumatized souls within this material world as a result of the different activities and the karmic activities. And the nations have to carry that karma as well. And as regards your comment on secondary souls within our body, and it is nice that when we start to chant the Hare Krishna, Krishna's name, the vibrations of those sound vibrations do have an impact on the living bacteria and germs within our body. And eating prasad also is a nourishment for those souls if they're going to feed on you and use your body as a host. Okay, quick. Anyway, sorry about that.
That's good point. Good point. I like that point. So when we chant, actually chanting loudly will help those souls also hear the holy name. I like that. It's good. Thank you. Anybody else? Sanjana, I think you had a question. Are you there?
Hare Krishna, Navi. Did you want me to repeat the question that I messaged you about?
Yes, please.
Oh yeah, so this was just in reference to when we were designating the different modes of material nature, and the idea that even in the mode of goodness, it potentially might not be good enough to ascend to the spiritual kingdom, because although we ascend to the higher planets, it's possible that in the sort of splendors of the higher planets we might forget Krishna consciousness. But just to clarify that there is a possibility, if we kept Krishna on our hearts when we were on those higher planets, that we could achieve Krishna consciousness and continue our good work there and ascend to the spiritual abode.
Yes. Basically, your point is, if we do the work and we attain the heavenly planet, can we go further into the spiritual world by continuing, by becoming God conscious, by becoming Krishna conscious?
Yeah.
I thought that was a good question to ask because everybody can hear the question, but also the answer is basically yes, of course. One is never limited. It could be in any part of the material world, and Krishna will always give you the opportunity to become Krishna conscious. But it's said that in heaven, because there's so much enjoyment, and as you said yourself, so much opulence, that the inclination, because there's no suffering, there's really no inclination to become God conscious, Krishna conscious, unless one is self-motivated. On earth, because there's a little bit of happiness, but there's a lot of suffering, there's quite a lot of incentive to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Whereas in heavens, you don't have that same urgency. And the enjoyment is so great. You lose track of time. Before you know it, you've exhausted your good karma, you're back onto this world. So even the demigods, it is said, especially in this age of Kali, they are praying to take birth in this age in order to actually become Krishna conscious very quickly and go back to God. So in one sense, we are very, very, very fortunate to be present in this Kali Yuga just after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's left. And Srila Prabhupada has come and given us the law books. So we are very fortunate because we can actually make advancement very quickly in this period of time. Because actually knowledge, Krishna conscious knowledge is freely available. And especially during this lockdown time, we've got a little bit more time as well to delve into the spiritual subject matters.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. That does help a lot.
Do you have questions?
No, actually, but I just wanted to remember, do you know, should I mention about the video thing at the end of the session, or should I say it now?
No, you can say it now, yeah.
Okay, so this actually fits in quite well with the idea of how to give gratitude and things about giving the knowledge to accrue good karmas and improve others as well as ourselves. But I don't know, I hope everybody knows that we have this social media, which is live.veda, which is sort of designed to help this purpose in this day and age of social media.
Actually, I don't use because we haven't advertised.
Oh yeah, well, that's the quick advertising for Nabi's socials. So I was thinking, because since we've had such great benefit from attending these classes, and I'd like to thank Nabi Das and Jayanti and Madhusudan for conducting these for us, that when we finish them, if anyone would want to submit like a video testimonial, just telling everyone what they gained from the class, and we could post them on the social medias and try and spread this knowledge even further. That would be like such a good idea. What does everyone think? I hope everybody likes that idea.
Everybody's asleep.
Yeah, it's a good idea. You know, I really appreciate Nabi for inviting me on this platform and giving me a chance to make some contribution in my own way. I hope it's helped, and certainly, you know, a lot of good work. But this knowledge is required, and no matter in whatever way, more people can at least become conscious of what's happening, the law of karma and modes of material nature, and what is really what is the best thing that we can do to help somebody. If you don't know how to save a person who's drowning, then you don't have that knowledge to help that person. So unless you know how to help that person who's really, really suffering, then it's very difficult. But we're fortunate that here is, you know, Prabhupada and the great acharyas, and there's always going to be saintly people around. There's so many wonderful devotees as a result in the Krishna consciousness, ISKCON itself, you know. So a lot of good work is being done now. And I know, you know, about charity and feeding the poor and helpless people. You know, I was just in the process of looking into how our family members can help. And it's, you know, there are organizations in India where they're distributing prasad now, rather than just food. They're distributing prasad to schools and all that. So that's a good thing that's happening now.
Anyway, I think Pretender said it's a very good idea. And I'm sure others will as well. So let's look at that a little bit later, I suppose, And if you want to do it whilst we're doing this Gita, that's fine as well. You can decide how you want to tackle that. Yeah, Sanjana?
Yeah, sure. I can send more details on like a group chat or something, so it might be easier to do that.
Yeah, except we haven't done a Gita, like this group. We haven't got one group. Maybe we should do one. But anyway, let's think about that. And I'll take the lead on that.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Any other questions or any comments?
Prabhuji,
Yeah.
I just had one thing to say. I wanted to say to everybody, I apologize if what I've said has upset anyone. I don't mean to offend anyone, or and also my communication skills aren't great, and I'm just trying to see where all this stands coming from a Krishna conscious angle. It's because I say this because in the past I've talked about it before Krishna consciousness, and somebody did get very upset, and then I realized how ignorant I was to just general stuff, and then I was like, oh man, you know, I should wait before I say certain opinions. And so but I yeah,
I don't think you would have offended anyone. These are topics which are interesting. Now pretend they're saying my eyes, am I crying my eyes out here? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Sarcastic. Crying.
I just ignore it. No. I think it's important to have these discussions. Some of them are tough discussions. You know, we're saying to people, oh, if you do good, you're going to be stuck in this world. Does that mean I don't do any good? You know, so we're not saying that. Good is very good. It's important to do good. But if we can adjust it somewhat to make it pure goodness, then why not? You know, then you get same action, but you're getting out of this world. So no, please don't feel that you will have offended anybody. And if anybody is offended, please do let us let's discuss it, and we're happy to talk through it. So,
I would like to, if people did get offended, I would like to know, because it just means that, again, it just helps me on how to approach certain things with you know, just without offending people or offending anyone.
actually, somebody just made a comment. Very good questions, actually, because they are on the borderline of our understanding. These questions other people will ask. Absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree. Never stop asking these questions. And the way you conveyed those questions were absolutely fine. So it was not offensive in any way. So, thank you very much. Any more comments or questions? Arunaben, Bhavani,
No, good, thank you.
Neelam. Okay. Everybody satisfied or unsatisfied?
Okay.
Today we didn't get very far, but it's fine. It's absolutely fine. There's no massive rush. But tomorrow we'll continue with this comparative study, if that's okay with the devotees. Okay, good. Thank you very much. So, shall we go into Aruna Bhavan's wonderful recitation of